Hey guys, it's Mike, just coming at you at the beginning of the episode here to let you know that because of some technical difficulties, we lost the video version of the podcast. Unfortunately, when hitting record, there was a little error that didn't interrupt us going live, but apparently interrupted the capture of the recording. It wasn't that clear when it came up, but it happened, unfortunately. So that is not there, but what I am going to do, I am going to put up the slides as we talk about them so that you can at least follow along with the visual aid. So I got you as much as I can. And then next week, we're going right back to having our face cams on as well. All right. So enjoy the episode. It's a really good one. I think this is one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Leave a comment down below if you do. And we'll see you next week. It is officially the new year for us.
Yes.
It was the new year for those of you who were listening on Spotify last week. But for us now, as we're recording, it is now the good year 2020. Full vision for everybody. This is the year where nobody wears glasses. Kevin, what are you doing? Thank you.
I'm going to need those back.
You threw them away.
Hold on. Like, I just saw my computer screen with all the notes just go away. I was like, wait a minute.
Oh, no.
All of these texts, they're all gone.
I was fully prepared for this, and then suddenly, whoosh,
it's all
everything's done.
New year, new us, guys.
New year, new me. Kevin, are you doing anything for anything differently this New Year's? I know it's been a whole week since we talked about it last, but
well, fix my car.
Nice. That's good.
Car broke down today. I guess I'm fixing that this year.
Fair enough.
Feels bad. What about you, Mike?
Yeah.
You doing anything? Did you play the game?
I actually played the game.
In fact, you did, because you uploaded it. So you did do it.
Exactly. You might have seen actually on Friday we posted our first video, like non podcast video on Pokesports. It was all about 66 singles and all about Obstagoon and all that good stuff. So that was pretty fun. Also this week we had our first giveaway. So that was fun. We gave away all the Pokemon in the December Pokemon Spotlight, and we loved the amount of people that joined in to participate.
An incredible amount. We were not even prepared for it.
Yeah.
Beyond our expectations. Yeah.
It was kind of a moment where we were like, oh, okay, let's get like everything into gear right now.
I actually remember.
Sure we can keep up with the people.
Yeah, we actually decided that so on the spot. It was the day of that we posted up I think it was the day of last week's podcast. I remember being at work and you were also at work, and we're just on Discord typing about, hey, we should do a giveaway, and we're like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And we just do it all together. Yeah.
But it was really good, and it's actually still going on. If you're listening on Twitch, the giveaway is going on until midnight tonight. So you still have a few hours to get in, but if you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, don't worry, you'll be able to join in on next month's giveaway, which is happening at the end of every month.
Midnight Eastern, by the way.
Next little while. Yeah, midnight Eastern Standard. Yeah, that's right. So check your clocks. Make sure it's
working.
It's still on for the next 3 hours.
Make sure your clock has a battery in it.
Exactly. If you were thinking of doing it later, don't.
Hurry up.
So yeah, as I said, let's just get into one really quick announcement. So you may have noticed, as we said, this past Friday, we had our first non-podcast video go up on our Pokesports YouTube page. That one was a video from me doing 6v6 singles. What you may be excited to hear is that we're getting more into the content game on YouTube from there. So we'll be putting out videos every day, starting today, every single day. Exactly.
Beautiful.
Well, I guess technically starting tomorrow, but whatever.
Yeah, this counts.
Exactly. I mean, Kevin's going to handle the VGC side from Sunday to Tuesday. You're going to get different videos there each day, be it either how-tos or stream highlights or actual battle videos. And then same kind of thing for me from Sunday until Saturday. But for everybody who is currently a Pokesports fan, Pokesports Podcast fan, you're still going to get that on Wednesday at the same time that it's been going up. So that'll be there. In terms of Twitch, we're also going to be streaming the actual game because that's something we've been asked a couple times. It's like, oh, you talk about it a lot, but like we barely ever see you play it. So
where's the game?
Where's the game? So Kevin's going to be doing that on Tuesday, and I'm going to be doing that on Thursdays.
Pokesports Podcast
on Twitch.
Yeah,
on Twitch. Again, it's all happening because of the reception of the podcast and for the giveaway and all the stuff that we've been doing. We've been so happy that so many of you guys have decided to come and join us, and we have a ton to talk about. So we're going to share it because we can't shut up about it. So
speaking of talking,
welcome to Pokemon. Yeah. So speaking of talking,
into the news,
let's get into the actual podcast. Today, as you might have noticed from the title, or if somebody's told you to listen to this episode, we're talking about bans in Pokemon. It's something that everybody kind of knows about if you've had any experience with Smogon or even with VGC a little bit. But I feel like not a lot of people know the total ins and outs about bans. So we decided to do that research for you. You're welcome. But before we do that, let's do some news. Kevin, you want to talk about VGC in the news?
VGC season 2020 has started ever since yesterday. A bunch of mid-season showdowns are going on right now. If you guys don't know that, they're pretty much just your local tournaments. You just go to your closest mom and pop shop. They might be hosting a tournament made by, or run by Pokemon. I think they're called Pokemon professors that, just run the Pokemon tournaments. And if you get like a high rating, like a high rank in the tournament, you'd actually get CP that'll help you towards Worlds. It's not a lot, and it depends on how many people actually enter, but it's still fun. It's a good experience, and I'd say that if you guys have never been to one, go to one. It's definitely really, really enjoyable.
Have I told you my housemate is actually a Pokemon professor?
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah. So my housemates are big into the TCG, and my friend's girlfriend for fiance now actually. She's a Pokemon professor.
Not
she
bad.
goes to these places and actually does it. So actually, on that note,
is she gonna go to the regionals
on Twitter? Absolutely. She hosts a lot of them. Yeah.
So she's gonna go to the one in
the regionals
Ontario?
that you're coming to?
Yeah.
She's gonna go to that one. Yeah, I don't think she's hosting that one. I think she wants to compete in that one.
Oh,
so.
Fancy! I didn't know they were allowed to.
On VGC, people are right now sending in their top 4 winner teams.
Yeah,
you'll
top
see a
cuts,
lot on like VGC stats. They'll put like the winners and the second, the runner ups and the third and fourth. You're seeing a lot of typical teams in there using things like Arcanine and Whimsicott and Dragapults, Mimikyus. Oh,
no way.
But there are some kind of interesting ones. For example, San Antonio VGC premiere, that was January 4th, yesterday, Saturday. First place went to Timothy Harden, who used a somewhat standard team, but included a Vanillux.
Ooh, Hail team.
So yeah,
fancy.
Hail teams are here. Welcome to Hail.
Yeah, about time, because like we have a couple of like Hail setters. Yeah, but one of the best one was like a Alolan Ninetales, and that's just not in the meta right now.
That's just gone now.
Yeah, so it's nice to see that there's some type of introduction to it.
It's pretty spicy. But I'm liking it.
But here's the thing with like really early midseason invitationals or showdowns is that people bring the best of the best. They don't use it to experiment. It's the first official competition of the season. So we expect to see Arcanine, we expect to see Whimsicott, we expect to see Dragapult. But my man whipped out a whole ice cream cone. Like he
exactly.
He doesn't care. Much respect.
Exactly. Menino Jardim won the mid-season showdown, another name that we're pretty used to in Lisbon with the Scrafty.
That's new.
Which again, it's not completely out there, but it is a Pokemon that we don't see too often, and it's kind of cool to see that on a winning team.
Yeah, absolutely.
It means it has a place. I like that a lot. Galar Weekly number 6 is going on. I don't know if it's finished by now, but it had 262 registrants. As far as I know, games are still underway.
Dude, that's
because they had a lot of
yeah,
people.
that's so they have to cap this audience at one point, dude. That's so many.
Yeah.
How do you even run that?
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like
Jeez.
the game, people were catching up, right? People were playing the game and getting there and getting their Pokemon ready. And now like more and more people are, ready to actually battle and then coming in and doing their first tournaments. So I think we're going to see that for another little bit. We're going to see more and more registrants until probably, I would say, like, if this goes until, the 20th week, that's when we're going to start seeing a little bit of a decline from people who are just kind of like losing natural interest.
Yeah, that's also true.
Even when like the VGC series like really starts to pick up and people are, migrating over to doing their weekend tournaments. That being said, actually, now is a fantastic time to watch VGC tournaments on Twitch.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially in locally casted tournaments. I want to show you, not this, not that, not that. Wow, where have I been? There we go. I want to look at this slide right here. So you'll see this is actually what the Pokemon game for the Switch has this ability for you to connect to somebody else's battle and watch them as a third person. On top of all the overlays and stuff that all the professional Pokemon casters use, this is just naturally built into the game. It shows both Pokemon, both their HPs, all 4 of the Pokemon in this case for VGC. It shows all of that data. It shows all the Pokemon that are on their are in their party and are ready to come out. But it also shows the duration of field moves. So things like Electric Terrain, things like Trick Room, those are all shown there, like kind of cycling through the middle, as well as that little entering a command thing right above it. So to me, this made the viewing experience so much better.
And that's a big thing, is that if Pokemon's trying to make its identity an esport, you have to make viewing experience better. Like that's
for sure.
And honestly, that looks pretty crisp, pretty clean. Like the HUD isn't too overtaking. You could still see all the animations very well. And the thing with like old VGC tournaments in the past, they would just take one person's perspective and that would be the battle. You would just watch from that person's perspective. And I don't know if this is just a personal thing. The person whose perspective I was watching, I would just automatically root for, because I was like, oh, right, exactly. I'm pretending like I'm them. But
it's an unconscious bias that like just kind of happens.
But like now it seems like it's more evenly divided. People get like identical representation when it comes to viewing. So I like that.
That's a very good way of putting it. Identical representation. Absolutely. I actually was just watching today the Florida VGC premiere. And it was really interesting to watch a regional, not a regional, but like a stream happening inside a specific area. It was happening in like some Florida game shop,
like a mom and pop shop.
All of the mom and pop. So like all the people watching were locals, and like they were, just people who are watching for the sake of watching or watching their friends or whatever. And like it was so cool to see the people cheering on local celebrities in Pokemon. There were people cheering on this guy named Mark Daly, and people cheering on this guy named Sam O'Dell, who I've never heard of, but they all seem to love. And I straight up asked in the chat, I was like, oh, does Mark Daly have like social or anything? He's like, no, just a local guy. He's just a good guy. Yeah. I was like, okay, cool. It just goes to show that like the people who you see online, maybe on like YouTube or Twitch or whatever, they aren't always like the people who are number one in the game or like who are really good. Sometimes, the real greats are the offline players who you meet at places like that, like places like tournaments. And that's also why they say that like going to tournaments is the best way to,
improve,
learn how to play the game and improve. Exactly. But yeah, I mean, hey, another way that you can improve is watching and listening to this podcast. So
Pokesports.
With all that said, let's talk about bans.
The big old bad bans. Let's do it.
The banhammer. Exactly. So let's get into that, bans. Why people are bans made? Well, I'll tell you. Pokemon moves, items, abilities, they are what the game is. That's all we get. It's not like games like League of Legends or games like StarCraft or games like Warcraft where they can patch it every couple weeks.
Yeah.
Typically you'll see game developers like remove or tweak aspects of the game to make the experience more fair. But since Pokemon specifically comes out every 1 to 3 years, with new Pokemon abilities and moves and items, the Pokemon don't really have a chance to, get that kind of treatment, to be nerfed or to be buffed. You don't see those two words being used very often until
a new game comes out.
Comes out, exactly. So to balance things, the organizers that play Pokemon for VGC and the organizers at Smogon, they kind of take things into their own hands and they introduce bans. Smogon uses tiers, which is another kind of form of banning, and VGC kind of does things a little differently, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the question here is are bans necessary? Are bans a good thing? To me, and Kevin, I'll let you give your opinion too. I think that they're arguably a great thing. I think to me it limits the pool to like a set of finite resources that can be used in variety. So like you don't get the chance to like you can lean into certain meta Pokemon, you can lean into your favorites, but you can kind of on a rotating basis, like on a longer term, like learn how to play a Pokemon, learn how to make it good, and then just kind of go with that. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good thing. What do you think, Evan?
I think in like a game like Pokemon, it's actually more necessary in comparison to games like League of Legends, because League of Legends, like you can have a person that's playing a bad character, but the person can be bad. In Pokemon, it doesn't take outer worldly skills to click a button. So yeah, you can argue there are ways to play like you can be comfortable with a Pokemon and you can learn to play a certain type of niche very well. But at the end of the day, as long as you can click a button, you can do damage. Like so if a Pokemon just does too much damage, or if an item is just too game changing, then it gets to that point where you're like, okay, if I can just bring this Pokemon and win 90% of the time, is this really competitive? So I think they're 100%. They're like super necessary.
And I mean, I think that's kind of why a lot of people get upset about banning. They say that it kind of ruins the game experience for them, right? Like when certain Pokemon are included in tiers and Smogon are allowed to kind of run rampant in VGC, Primal Groudon, it feels like there's kind of no way around them. And then they get bored of it. So, I mean, that's, some people are upset when certain things go unchecked or when certain things get moved and shouldn't be moved, or in their opinion. But like you'll see this in a lot of games where like one champion or a hero or a unit or a card is overpowered. People get mad at how often they see it happen, and that's typically when the nerfs will happen, when people get mad at their game, right? Like they're like, oh, okay, you don't want to see that. Let's
fix that a little
those
bit.
People back a little bit, exactly, yeah. And I mean, sometimes when a game comes out, it takes a little while for people to kind of realize that some things like Pokemon or items are incredibly good. And so the meta will shift.
Yes.
And specifically include those specific Pokemon. A great example that we just kind of found the other day is specifically Obstagoon.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Obstagoon is an amazing Pokemon, but I feel like for the first, 4 weeks of this game, it went kind of completely unchecked.
Yeah.
People thought that it would have been okay, but then they're like, oh, the typing's really bad. And like it can't do this, it can't do that. But now they're actually using it and they're like, oh, it's got the typical like Guts Flame Orb that can do really well.
And it's a lot faster than Conkeldurr.
It's a lot faster than Conkeldurr, exactly.
And has access to knockoff, which not many Pokemon have access to anymore. There's a lot of there's like when people first saw Obstagoon, they looked at the type and they're like, Alolan Rattata. We don't need this.
Basically, yeah.
But And I felt like also on top of that, a lot of people in the beginning of the meta, I don't know if you noticed, they were very defiant happy. Like Bisharps, Braviary. I've seen Obstagoon in the beginning of the meta. It was defiant. People weren't considering Guts. They were just like, oh, Dynamax moves are going to lower my stats. I'm going to use Defiant. But the thing is, you could play against that. You could just not Dynamax.
Exactly.
But Guts Flame Orb is just so nice, especially when you get an Obstruct. You lower their defenses to -2, and it's just a guaranteed one-shot next turn.
Right?
Yeah, it's like...
It's beautiful.
I think it's really good. If you guys want to see more examples of Obstagoon being used, Mike used it on his video on our YouTube channel, and I'm going to actually be using it tomorrow on the YouTube channel as well.
So if you're listening to this on Spotify, you'll have already seen it on our YouTube channel, or it's already up.
It's already there.
Exactly. So today we're going to be talking about bans, how they work in VGC and how they work in Smogon. Before the break, let's do bans in VGC because it's a lot different than what happens in Smogon. But I'll let Kevin get into that. So Kevin, tell me about bans.
So for Smogon, I feel like a lot of people, like when they think of bans, they think of Smogon because Smogon has so many of them. Like it's a very large number of bans that happen. They split all the Pokemon to tiers.
Like they get pretty controversial.
Yeah, that's where all the heat and flame come from. For VGC, usually they have a ban list at the beginning of a season, and that is the way it stays until the end of that season. There have been notoriously they don't ban as many things as Smogon. They're pretty open with just, okay, we're going to let everything in and we'll see what happens. The biggest, I think, ban that they're known for is actually like Dex bans. A lot of people wouldn't consider this a ban, but just by limiting a Dex, you're essentially banning out a select number of Pokemon. So the Galar Dex in this generation is essentially a ban, like an allowed list of Pokemon along with a ban list. Everything not in the Galar Dex is technically banned. Basically. So with that, that's like the biggest instance of bans. They have banned things like certain specific Pokemon, certain moves, certain items in the past. An example can be Battleborn Greninja, which was banned not even because it was good, it was banned because it was very limited, and you would need like the special demo version of the game in order to get this Pokemon, so not everyone would have access to it. And that's also essentially why they banned Pokemon like Mystic Pokemon like Mew, Zeraora, etc., because not everyone has access to it. They're mystery gifts, and if you're not there at the time that they're being gifted out, you just don't have that Pokemon, essentially. Were you gonna say something? I interrupted you like 4 times.
No. I love that. That's great. I mean the most of the cover legendaries, all of the cover legendaries are basically not allowed in the game. Those plus Mewtwo and Kyurem, actually. I looked at the list and I was like, oh yeah, all of those were on the cover of a Pokemon game except for Gen 1, which had the original 3 starters, and Kyurem, who technically was fused with the other 2 in B2, W2. But
there's some meta games that allow it, but usually the first meta game of a game, they just don't even allow it. So like you won't see Eternatus, you won't see Zacian, you won't see Zamazenta in VGC.
I don't think you ever will see Eternatus.
Maybe one day.
Good Lord. Yeah, really.
But yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're talking about last year, VGC 2019, the Sun series, which ran from September until January, and then for the Moon series, which ran from January until April, they allowed legendary or pseudo legendaries these were legendaries like Kyogre and Xerneas and all of those kind of guys. And then in the Ultra series, they allowed just everything.
So period.
That meant that specifically that items could be used. So the red orb, blue orb, those could be given to Kyogre, to Groudon. And you saw that when that happened, the Ultra series saw tons of Primal Groudon.
Oh yeah.
That Pokemon was just all over.
You saw tons of Groudon, tons of Rayquaza, tons of Xerneas.
Oh yeah,
Incineroar will always be on a team.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like the VGC bans though are pretty. Well, I mean they're really light, right? Like they don't.
Oh yes, compared to
take out
Smogon,
anybody
absolutely.
in the exactly. They don't take out any of the Pokedex. Why do you think that is?
I think because I want to think that with this game specifically is what I'm referring to, is that they take the time to actually look through the decks and see what can shift into a meta. Like, I understand that we have our Dragapults, we have our Arcanines, we have our Whimsicots, but there are still Pokemon in this metagame that I think can succeed while not being meta, if that makes any sense. Like, we're playing Obstagoon and we're succeeding right now, but not a lot of other people are playing Obstagoon.
That's true.
So there's always going to be a niche pocket pick for certain Pokemon and certain Pokemon of a dex type. And I also think that a lot of the changes they do are intentional. Like, they removed all of the Spore users except one, and the one they left in is pretty bad.
Yeah, right?
They left a lot of Sleep Powder users, but whatever.
As much as they say that they don't listen, like, they kind of pay attention to some things, right? Like, the Spore is a perfect example of that. Just like they just straight up didn't let Breloom in. They straight up didn't let, who was another Spore user?
Amoonguss,
exactly. Didn't let them in. To me anyway, I think that the format has a lot to do with it, between doubles and singles. VGC, when you're sending out two Pokemon at the same time, like that, one of them could be a sitting duck. And if you're letting that one be a legendary, then like, obviously you can have two Pokemon take that down. Now, if you had things like Eternatus that has like incredible amounts of everything, then like it's probably going to have some trouble. So I don't think that it's ever going to see allowance into the VGC scene, but yeah, we'll see.
And I also think another thing that VGC has over singles in terms of, just being able to deal with Pokemon better, you have the option of Protect for outplay potential. Singles doesn't have that. Your outplay potential is getting a good switch, and that's it. And if you don't,
that's very true.
Yeah, if you don't get a good switch, then you just kind of get swept by a Galarian Darmanitan.
Right. And I mean, like, Protect has its value, definitely not as much as VGC. Protect, really, you only ever see if you're stalling, or if you're wishing, exactly, or if you are trying to predict a high jump kick, something like that. It's usually not particularly put on a Pokemon for the sake of battle, but definitely in VGC you see that on, like, it's basically, is that fair to say that that's probably one of the most used moves in VGC? Yeah,
absolutely, without a doubt. Every Pokemon gets it.
That's true.
If I have a spot for it on my Pokemon, I stick it on 100% of the time. And if I have trouble, then I would consider getting rid of a stab move for Protect if I had to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, between the I kind of lightly mentioned the Sun Series, Moon Series, and the Ultra Series for 2019. There were more differences with that. The Sun Series, they just kind of were introducing the new Pokemon. They wanted people to kind of get a hold of that, and for that they disabled, I guess disabled is the word I put in air quotes, some core mechanics of the actual game, right? Like, they didn't allow Z moves, they didn't allow Mega Stones, Blue Orb, Red Orb, as I mentioned. But like, to not even let people use kind of the big thing that made Sun and Moon, that was them basically saying, okay, just learn what these Pokemon do first, and then we'll kind of kick it up a notch and let you use the broken stuff.
That was them seeing. That was them pretty much saying, okay, we know that these mechanics are a little crazy. Let's see what happens when we don't put them in.
Exactly. And then they like slowly creep that in, right? Like the Moon Series, you could use Z moves, Z crystals then. Yeah. Still not Mega Stones though, because that was the last season's, last game's mechanic. So you hold off on those. You already know those. How about you learn Z crystals now? Still no Blue Orb, Red Orb. They're still like putting up their fences. They're keeping the water behind the floodgates.
They're keeping Oras out of it. Yeah.
Exactly. Oras can get out of here. Rayquaza still couldn't learn Dragon Ascent, so it couldn't turn into Mega Rayquaza. And then the Ultra series came and they were like, all right, go nuts.
All right. Game's about to end. We're going on Switch next year. Do whatever you want.
Exactly. Let's just push this
see how far we can
pool to the absolute limit. Let's see what we can do. Have fun. And apparently Primal Groudon was the thing.
I mean, that's why I'm convinced that they had to have taken the meta into consideration when crafting this dex.
Almost certainly.
They literally said, guy, let's see what happens when we open a dex up, and then we'll take whatever is good and get rid of it. Like, that's almost what they did. I didn't see an Excadrill last year.
What's an Excadrill?
I didn't see an Arcanine last year.
I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago too. Is like, you didn't. The last time you saw Excadrill was like at the beginning of the XY meta.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people tried it. And they were like, oh, okay, that was fun. Let's get into the Mega Pokemon now.
Let me use a Mega Kangaskhan now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's basically bans in VGC. Very limited, then less limited, then go nuts.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with VGC 2020. I don't feel like they're going to open up the floodgates completely for that one.
Not even 2021. I don't think so either. They're probably just gonna creep their way in again. Maybe they'll make Zacian, Zamazenta, and maybe Eternatus. Yeah, maybe. Mm-hmm. Just like a regular Eternatus, not the scary big one.
Maybe.
But I don't know. Maybe they'll add more Pokemon to the game. We'll see what happens with home. Because right now, technically, there's certain Pokemon that we have in the game right now, but the best forms of those Pokemon aren't available because their hidden abilities aren't available. Like,
that is true.
Prankster Meowstic isn't available. Unaware Clefable isn't available. Prankster Liepard isn't available. Like, there's a lot of Pokemon that home will open up for the meta, and I'm actually excited to see how that is going to change the meta.
That's true. Me too. All right, but for now, let's take a little break. Take a nice little deep breath. And we don't have to talk about Pokemon too much right now, because we're just enjoying our time. Kevin, how was your week?
It was okay.
You got it. Uh-oh.
I mean, my real life was in the dumpster a little bit. I was sick all week, and then my car pooped on me today. But Pokesports stats are up and up. That's a good thing. And on top of that, I'm doing very well on BattleSpot, so
that is fun.
My life.
What's your highest?
My online life is a lot better than my.
Your online life is great.
Yeah.
So, what was the highest you got in BattleSpot now?
Oh, I didn't make it to Master Ball 2 yet. I'm still grinding my way there.
Oh,
I didn't play a lot, but what I played was good.
Right. Oh, that's true. It's a new season, so
they dropped me down to like Great Ball 9. So I'm
dude.
Yeah, I'm like one game away from Master Ball. Almost there. Yeah.
Okay. You go from Great to Master?
Yeah.
There's no Ultra?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm one away from Master, so I'm like at the end of Ultra.
Oh, okay. I thought, whatever. Cool.
I'm one battle away from Master.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
There it is.
For me, my week apart from New Year's.
How was your week, Mike?
Oh, sure, good. I put a lot of time into making that video. That came out
I know
Sports.
that video is so beautiful, Mike.
I love it.
I'm kind of my video tomorrow is just kind of like Mike is the big buff guy at the gym walking in with his new video, and here I am, the scrawny New Year's Eve guy walking in, just looking at Mike. With my new video.
My fear that I will share to the podcast people is that I'll be able to hopefully keep that up, because
you put a lot of work into that.
I like how that went, but I also had a full week off from work, right? So I was able to take some time and actually do that. So now with work back up, like, I'll be able to put out the video. I just hope that it'll be as good. And so I'll try and put the same kind of effort into that without burning myself out.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I really don't want. I really don't want to burn myself out with these.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's life, right?
If
you're working, you try and do anything else without burning out.
If you guys want to help us not have jobs, Keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what we're. If you're listening to this, you're helping. Thank you.
There you go. That is very true. Yeah, that video had big inspiration from Rick and Morty. Been watching the new season. Yeah.
Wait, that's
they had a yeah. Like a good 4 or 5 episodes. Might have even been 6 episodes before like the mid season.
I got something to do now.
Yes, you do. One of the episodes drew some inspiration from like heist movies, and I was like, oh, okay, that's fun.
There it is. That's the thing.
I'll do specifically that. So, yeah. Anyway, plus I had experienced Obstagoon a couple times on Showdown during my break, so I was like, oh, you know what? Let's give Obstagoon a try, and then I fell in love with it. It was great. I am probably going to continue using it this week in my games. Maybe do a little talk about that on I want to say Thursday, something like that.
Did you go against Obstagoon on Showdown?
I went against Obstagoon once, and it obstructed. And I was like, wait, what does this do? And I looked it up and I was like, oh, wait, yeah, that's really good.
You're like, okay, sir.
Well, I mean, if King's Shield can happen and break the game, right? Like what means that Obstruct can't? I firmly believe that it's that good.
It's just the worst typing. That's why people aren't using Obstagoon.
It really is. Yeah, it's not a great typing, but it kind of has some places. There are some times where I'm like, oh, I wish I had a normal type to soak this. Definitely incoming Shadow Ball. I feel like I want to build my team such that like I put a good psychic Pokemon in there that is really, really weak to Shadow Ball and really try and predict some good switches there.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Because that's something that you really have to play into in singles. It's just the switch game. Like
immunities are probably very good in singles. Yeah.
I was playing this one game where I swear we switched more than we attacked. Like we probably switched like 2 times, 3 times more than we actually attacked. It was just like predicting who was going to switch into what, and like over predicting and overcompensating and over switching. It was nuts. But I feel like those were all viable switches. And, like,
but that means that you two both have like very well built teams, right? If you're actually able to switch that many times, it's because you have the Pokemon to do it with.
It's really cool to see like accurate predictions on your own side and also on the opponent's side. Like you can really judge how good an opponent is by what they're expecting to come out of your team. Because you can only really see, and I guess we're getting kind of back into the game now, but where you can really see like a good player by their actions. You can see a player who's like looked at your team at the very beginning of the game, because like you don't get the chance to look at their entire team always like you do on Showdown, right?
Yeah.
Like you see it once at the beginning, and if some people like write it down, or some people just have good memory like that, and they know what to expect.
I think now you can click plus though. Now you can click plus. Hey? Yeah. Click plus, Mike.
Oh, well, maybe I'm dumb.
Mike still thinks this is Gen 5, ladies and gentlemen. He's a hardened veteran. No, you're not dumb.
White are such good games, man.
You're not dumb, Mike. You're a hardened veteran.
I'm a hardened veteran who refuses to change. Anyway, let's talk about some Smogon bans, huh?
Back into it, boys.
Well, before that, remember the December giveaway, people.
Yeah.
If you've just joined us now, there is a giveaway going on Gleam. If you can navigate to our Twitter at Pokesports Pod to go and look at the pinned tweet we have there that talks all about it. Very simple, very free for you. Just go and check out a bunch of stuff, and you'll be entered to win 4 special Pokemon that we talked about at all of our December podcast episodes.
2 hours left.
2 hours left. We're getting there. So let's talk about, there we go. Let's talk about Smogon. Smogon is a little bit of a different beast than VGC. They have kind of done a lot of background work, and they've separated Pokemon into tiers. This is something that I like to do with cereal, Cinnamon Toast Crunch being S tier. Now they have, they've separated it into, 7 or 8, about 7, pretty easy to remember tiers, that being Ubers at the top, underneath that overused, then underused, rarely used, never used, poorly used, and zero use. My favorite is poorly used because that acronym is PU. Love it. It's great. Yeah. So I mean, like the most popular format right now is OU and has kind of traditionally always been OU.
Yeah.
And then Ubers typically contains mostly legendary Pokemon until kind of later on in the season. What this means is that, you know, Pokemon within their tiers are for legal play. So you can kind of go into an OU match and use certain Pokemon in that OU category and everything under it. So, you know, your RU, UU, NU, PU, ZU. You can use all of those, but you cannot use anything above it. So you can't use any Uber Pokemon. If you're playing an underused match, then you can't use any Uber or overused, and so on and so forth, going down the list like that. Now, I said that Ubers has mostly legendary because some of the most controversial things that have happened in Smogon are when Pokemon are moved from typically its most popular format OU to specifically Ubers. So we're talking things like Blaziken, we're talking things like Gengar, we're taking things like Aegislash. In Sun and Moon, they were all sent to Ubers because of their abilities, because of speed boost, because of shadow tag for Mega Gengar, because of form switch for Aegislash, but also just because of Aegislash in general. It was
it was a nutty Pokemon.
It was pretty nutty
at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, rather than just kind of send everything out again because of the format, because it's singles, because it's 1 versus 1, that makes the Pokemon even more like difficult to deal with. And I really want to emphasize that, difficult to deal with. I want you to keep that sentence in mind because I'm gonna go back to it a couple times. So moving on though, rather than being separated by season like VGC is, Smogon is kind of separated by game. So you've got Sword and Shield, you've got your Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. They're separated in tiers like that. Because there isn't a season, there isn't a series that goes with this. And
it's ever changing, right?
Exactly.
It's always happening.
It's always happening. Recently, a big topic of conversation, a big focus is because of this guy right here, because of Galarian Darmanitan.
Monkey boy.
The monkey boy. He has become the first non-legendary, non-Gigantamax Pokemon to be moved to Ubers.
Yes.
Kevin, what do you think of that move?
Well deserved. In singles, it's I mean, just if you just read what this Pokemon does, you could say it's well deserved. Its ability gives it a free choice band, and then on top of that, you can add another item to it. Most people are doing Choice Scarf, which makes it super fast and hit super hard on a Pokemon that has 140 base attack. Like, a lot of people, it probably belongs there.
A lot of people last gen were using regular Darmanitan because of, I believe, Sheer Force Life Orb. And even then, it was seeing a lot of play. I believe it was OU. It may have been UU, but I think it was OU. And so to me, to have added Guerrilla Tactics as the ability, that is like, you know, completely opening the floodgates for extra like crazy power. And plus its typing's really good.
Yeah, ice, just straight ice. Nothing special.
Ice is really good. Icicle Crash is an amazing ability.
Still has access to all of its old fire moves. Like it's a good Pokemon. Yeah. The fire moves give it like something to hit steel types with also, which is something that most ice types struggle with. Yeah. The reason why like Mamoswine was always popular is because it can hit steel types super effectively. You know, Darmanitan gets that same option with doing just significantly more damage. I think in singles it's a lot worse than it is in doubles. You'll like hear me saying this a lot. Like Darmanitan I've never had a problem with in doubles. But I understand in singles how if you let this Pokemon, especially if you save this Pokemon for like a late game sweeper, you can just easily sweep the rest of the team. Like a team that's all half HP in singles, you can just sit there with a Choice Scarf Darmanitan and then just icicle crash, icicle crash, icicle crash. Even if it's not super effective,
Game's done.
you'll probably still destroy the rest of the team.
No, exactly, for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, especially with, I like what you said there about having the last couple Pokemon there being vulnerable to that. One of the bigger ones, the bigger ban choices that has been, it's still being debated really, is Dynamax. Dynamax has been banned from Smogon, from the game in general.
Yeah.
And again, why it goes back to what I was saying before. It makes the Pokemon very difficult to deal with.
Yes.
Right? Like it's incredibly difficult to build Pokemon in singles around Dynamax. Right? Like you can protect, but it breaks through protect. You can't redirect moves. You can't, stall out the Pokemon in any other way. Like the only way that you can't flinch. The only way that you can protect yourself against Dynamax is to Dynamax yourself.
Yeah.
And again, if anybody's listened to more than, I don't know, 2 episodes of this podcast, you'll know my feelings on Dynamax. It promotes some nutty use of the already strongest Pokemon, and it just does way too much for its own good, right? Like choose 2 even things of what Dynamax does, and that's a good move. Like that's a good mechanic. I don't think all of the things that Dynamax does is great.
Just take your weakness policy Pokemon, make it Dynamax, and win the game.
Exactly.
That's what people argue, because it's so hard to one-shot a Dynamax. It's actually very difficult.
Now, the last thing that we'll do before we move on to our Pokemon Spotlight, this is actually some news that just came out within the past couple hours.
Yeah.
Hawlucha, and I'm glad that this happened because this is something that we didn't actually talk about. Hawlucha was banned from UU and has now been moved into UUBL. So anybody here who has not heard this yet, you've heard it here first. Hawlucha was banned from UU, sent to UUBL. So BL is, I thought it was borderline, but Kevin, what was it actually?
A ban list.
Ban list. That's right.
Yeah.
So BL ban list, that can be attached to any of the tiers. But what it means is that specific tier that it's attached to, it can't be used for that tier, but it is still considered that tier. So what that means is Hawlucha in this case is considered a UU Pokemon, but it's too good for UU. But it's not good enough for OU, which is why I thought it was borderline. It kind of lives in the middle there, where like you can use it in OU games, but it's not good enough for you, or it's not bad enough, I guess, for UU. So there's that.
Yeah, Hawlucha received a lot of buffs this generation. It makes a lot of sense in my opinion. It got access to a stab, Brave Bird, stab, close combat. Like Unburden is just a great ability. You pair with an Indeedee on the team. I mean, even if Indeedee isn't on the field at the same, even like in doubles, you bring them both out at the same time. But in singles, I mean, you could just lead with an Indeedee and then just bring in a Hawlucha whenever you want. And then
Indeedee doesn't see much use in singles, and I don't think it will for a little while.
Hey, male Indeedee though? No,
I'm telling you,
probably not.
So anyway, let's move into today's Pokesports Pokemon Spotlight, featuring the one, the only. You knew it was coming.
The Goose.
The Goose.
The Goose.
The Goose.
Oh,
the Goose's daddy himself.
The Goose.
Obstagoons typically hold a flame orb with the ability Guts. This is a pretty common strategy used to burn yourself. You'll see it a lot on Conkelders, used to burn yourself and then have the Guts, which although you still take the burn damage, you do get a damage boost. Obstagoon has a pretty high base attack to begin with, as well as a ludicrously high base speed, because it is a part of the super fast Zangoose family.
They could actually speed ties with Arcanine. Yeah.
Obstagoon is an evolved form of who? Zigzagoon.
Linoon.
Linoon. That's right. That's right. I said Zangoose. It's not Zangoose. Usually runs a Jolly Nature to take advantage of that speed with 252 attack EVs, 252 speed EVs, and then put that last little bit in special defense, just because. Typically runs the moves Knockoff, Facade, Close Combat, and Bulk Up. However, one of the more typical replacement moves that you'll see is Obstruct. Now, Obstruct is a new move this generation where it acts as a protect, so it protects you against physical and special moves. However, it is touched by a physical move or a move that makes contact, it'll reduce the opponent's defense by 2 stages, which is absolutely nutty. Because then you'll be able to do immense damage with your Flame Orb, with your Guts. You can lead with it and lead with an Obstruct, or you can switch into it and try and predict a not very effective move and have Flame Orb go off and then Obstruct a turn later when you're assuming that they're going to use a potential high jump kick to take you down, make them take some damage, hit them with a Facade, normal 140 attack, 140 power move that's stab. It's nuts. It's great.
Yeah, Facade is super strong.
Exactly. Other potential moves, you can use a switcheroo to swap the Flame Orb onto them and get the burn off on them. I've also seen some Obstagoons use a Choice Scarf and act kind of like a Rotom Wash, going in and using the super quick switcheroo to lock them into a certain move. That kind of locks up your Obstagoon and kind of commits it to dying. But I mean, you can see it done. Parting Shot is another thing that you can very easily use. You switch into Obstagoon, get the burn off, have it be super speedy because it is super speedy. Use that Parting Shot to get it out of there. Do some damage super quick. And then the Double Edge, which is again just a super powerful move. Flame Orb, Guts, high attack, do a little bit damage to yourself, but has, again, super high attack for a normal move, but you might just want to use Facade in place of Double Edge. That might even be a case where you're using a
Defiant one,
Choice Scarf or a Defiant. Yeah, Defiant could work too. As we were saying before, a lot of people, they opt to go Defiant instead of Guts. But honestly, go Guts. People just,
it's more reliable.
It's so good. It's just so good. You can get burned if you use Defiant, and then when you get burned, it's a bad thing. In this case, Flame Orb makes it a good thing.
Yeah.
So there's that. Kevin, how have you been experiencing this Obstagoon?
Obstagoon, it's ridiculous,
isn't it?
It's so ridiculous. I don't want to spoil too much on my battles for tomorrow, but Obstagoon takes care of some Pokemon quite quickly, just by like easy one-shot Facades. It's so easy after you get the Obstruct off. I guess people still don't expect like Obstruct first turn for some reason. They just attack the Obstagoon, -2 defense, and suddenly that 140 base power stab move becomes very threatening.
Right.
With a Guts boost on top of it all. So all in all, yeah, Obstagoon +1 in my book. Especially if you have it on a Tailwind team for VGC, then it's just even better.
Now, when we're talking about tiers for Obstagoon for Smogon, Obstagoon is in the UU tier right now. And to me, I think that is in that tier specifically for its name alone. I think that Obstagoon is underused. I think that it's underappreciated. I think that it is kind of on its way up and should continue to go up in usage as people kind of start to either lose to this or see things like this where people are ranting and raving about it. I do want to see Obstagoon eventually hit OU, but time will have to tell for that.
Yeah, right now in UU, Obstagoon is at 33%. It's working its way up there. It's creeping up to OU, guys. Where it deserves to be. I think it deserves to be there. That Pokemon's a pretty interesting Pokemon.
If a Pokemon becomes overused, it's going to go into that overused tab.
Whoa, no way.
Oh, imagine. So before we go, we do have a few questions that I wanna tackle here. Ryan asked a nice one. Our Hunter N Run Turn. He asks, how do you feel about complex bans, such as banning Blaziken from having the speed boost ability, but not Blaziken as a whole? From the Smogon perspective, which I believe is what he's talking about, I feel that is smart. I think that it's a good idea, but I would say that, if you change Blaziken to have, I believe Blaze is its only other ability.
Yeah.
It becomes not very good right? Like it's just another firefighting type that has a little bit of extra firepower by the end of it. So I feel like the hidden abilities are what makes them particularly shine. I think it would be great if Blaziken was allowed, but I don't think it would have seen use anyway. I think that if a certain Pokemon had a move set and a ability that made it good without the thing that made it broken, I think that would be a smart idea to keep that Pokemon in with that specific move set and that specific ability, rather than ban the whole thing.
And they do that sometimes, right? I think they banned Protean.
Yes.
But they didn't ban Greninja. Or was that a thing?
I think that was a thing for a little bit. They kind of flopped back and forth between doing that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because for those of you who know, Cinderace is kind of facing that same looming threat with its Libero. It has some pretty good coverage. And if it's able to change its type with that ability, which is the exact same as Protean, I think.
They thought we wouldn't notice.
Exactly. They thought that we wouldn't notice. It what's the other thing that does the exact same thing but only has the in-game, the out of battle difference?
Oh, I have no idea.
Some like thing that prevents sleep.
Oh, Vital Spirit and and something else. It's on Delibird. We talked about it for Delibird.
That's right. Delibird's two abilities are the exact same and nobody can convince me different. But yeah, so Cinderace is going to be the exact same thing. I think it's already seen a ton of use.
It's OU already, yeah.
It's already OU, exactly. I think with Libero, it's going to become very quickly straight to Ubers. Like, not even pass go.
Not even a thought. They're not even going to give it the chance to play in OU.
No, exactly. I still remember. I still remember back in my day when they switched Shadow Tag to become an Uber's move.
That meant Wobbuffet was an Uber's. Hey,
exactly. So Mega Gengar was actually banned from, or it was banned from OU. It was sent to Ubers. You weren't allowed to use you were allowed to use a Gengar, but if that thing was holding a Mega Stone, no.
Nope.
That's a
bad.
No. Exactly. Another perfectly relevant example, thank you, Ryan, would be Galarian Darmanitan with Zen mode. They sent Darmanitan up there, but for some reason, like they sent the whole package. I personally, looking at Zen mode, I think that it's good. I think that it for singles would end up in UU pretty quickly.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's worse Darmanitan.
The thing with Galarian Zen mode, which is actually different than the other Zen mode, is the other Zen mode would raise your special attack to like 160.
Yes.
But you would have like almost no special moves. The Galarian Darmanitan raises your attack to 160, so you can still keep all of the moves you have.
Yeah.
So that's like the only thing I can see. Maybe it's not 160, it's like 145. I don't know what it is. No one uses it.
maybe we'll see it be reviewed with enough people talk about it, and hopefully we'll see it actually able to come back into the OU or the UU space, because I feel like people didn't even get the chance to try out Zen mode. I never saw a Galarian Darmanitan use Zen mode before its ban.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to see it a tiny bit in just singles. With people just trying out other things and trying to experiment. But certainly not in any Smogon sanctioned singles.
The thing with Smogon is that it's always changing. Nothing is ever finite. So just because it's banned right now doesn't mean it's stuck there forever.
Exactly. Exactly. So good question, Ryan. Thank you. We have another question from, I want to say it's I'm on a bike, but it's on a bike. Which says the question, who says the question, I'm a total noob. I heard you mentioning Arcanine and Whimsicott as common teams. What do they usually do, and which mons do they usually go with? This is a great question, Kevin. I'm going to let you handle that one.
Hello. Beat up on Whimsicott. If you have all of your Pokemon alive in your party, usually if you lead with this, will hit Arcanine 4 times with a dark type move. Arcanine has access to an ability called Justified, which is every time you get hit by a dark type move, your attack goes up by +1. So essentially what you would want to do is lead with an Arcanine, lead with the Whimsicott, hit your own Arcanine with your with your Whimsicott, and then Dynamax the Arcanine. So now not only do you have a big puppy, you have a big puppy at +4 that can, just pretty much one-shot anything.
+4 big puppy is pretty hard. Big dog don't fall down. You also see this occasionally with Lucarios. Lucario also gets access to Justified and does a very, very similar thing. Dynamax's first turn. This is VGC, by the way, like specifically only in doubles. This strategy does not work in singles. Dynamax is the first turn. Whimsicott, being faster than Lucario, will use beat up on the Lucario, get the +4 because every single time it attacks, it ups its attack by 1. You attack 4 times. Suddenly you have this attack that's doing 3 times its normal damage to one Pokemon or even a spread move to get both of them. Do you ever see? Are there any spread moves that Lucario or Arcanine get?
I don't think
Physical
so.
ones?
Usually they Dynamax anyway, and there's no spread Dynamax move.
Oh, that's fair.
Thank God.
Fair. Thank God. Yeah, I mean, Heat Wave's a spread move, but that's not affected by physical.
Yeah.
So
there are
anyway,
ways to counter this, by the way. You can just fake out the Whimsicott, or you can also just use Follow Me, and then it's countered.
Earthquake is a perfect example, yes, of a +4 that I believe Lucario gets access to. I may be wrong.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but it might.
It doesn't matter. But anyway, again, very good question. And thank you for asking that. Guys, if you ever have any questions, please feel free to send them to us as an email as well. If you're listening to this, not on Twitch while we're live, you can send that to us via email at pokesportspodcast@gmail.com. We're always willing to answer you there, as well as kind of bring up your question on the podcast. I think with that, let's go ahead and say goodbye. Kevin, where can people follow you?
Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, all xRazeOvation.
There you go. You can follow me as well on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, all at StillJustMike. You can follow us on Spotify and all other podcast providers now at Pokesports. Find us on YouTube as well at Pokesports. We have new videos coming out every single day. And you can subscribe to us there. We put out all kinds of videos, including this podcast, including this video version of this podcast, but also some how-to videos and some battle videos, some stream highlights, lots of super fun stuff over on the YouTube channel. So go and subscribe to us there.
Also, Mike, we got a new patron this week, didn't we?
Yes, we did. And
yes, our first patron. Thank you so much.
Exactly. And if you want to become a patron, we're going to be fleshing out all of those super fun tiers literally right after we're done this podcast. You can do that over at patreon.com/Pokesports Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Pokesports Podcast or on Twitter at Pokesports Pod because podcast was too long. I want to give you one last tip before we go. And this actually came from Twitter. So I'm just scrolling down here. Where was it? Yes. So listen, if you have a Pokemon that's using eject pack, did you see this? There was this video that's going around. Shofu kind of popularized it. On the one hand, on the protagonist side, let's call it, they were using an Arcanine, they were using a Coughing, and they also had a Galarian Wheezing, both of which had neutralizing gas. Right. So the abilities were suppressed. The other side had a Grubbin or whatever who used Sticky Web. Right. So the Sticky Web came out on the first turn. It was then Arcanine and Coughing on the field. Arcanine used Roar on the Coughing, which switched it out, brought in the Wheezing. As it was switching out, though, neutralizing gas went away. So the Arcanine who had Intimidate went off and used Intimidate on both of the opposing Pokemon. This was VGC. So both of the opposing Pokemon are at -1. The Wheezing comes out and it has neutralizing gas. So the Intimidate goes off, gets switched off. However, Wheezing was using an eject pack. Wheezing comes
just
out,
on and off,
gets
on
its
and off,
speed,
and off.
exactly,
My God.
gets its speed reduced, immediately pops right out of there. Arcanine's Intimidate goes off again.
Thank God for same Pokemon claws, so this can't actually happen.
Yeah, right. They do this 4 times. They
I
do
would be
this
so
4
mad.
times. It goes down to -4 on the first turn.
Jeez, dude, in just one turn. Oh, that's crazy.
That's hilarious.
So eject pack will just keep on going,
Yeah.
and it won't end the turn. You just keep switching and switching. Oh, geez.
No. Well, it can only be used kind of once, like it's an expendable.
Yeah, but
So-
you have different Pokemon that have it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But if you put it on 2 Pokemon, specifically those coughing and wheezing, because they both have neutralizing gas, that'll trigger the Intimidate. You kind of need that Intimidate to go on again. Otherwise, you're just kind of bouncing Pokemon back and forth.
Yeah.
Anyway, that has been my tip for today. Use it never, because it's not a good strategy. This has
It's
been,
just fun to see.
Exactly. This has been Pokesports, the competitive Pokemon podcast. We will see you next week. Toodles.